People in the longest living regions on Earth eat a food that most of us would spit out immediately. It's extremely bitter. But scientists studying these communities discovered something surprising. This unpleasant taste might actually help control blood sugar, support gut health, and even play a role in longevity. So why do people who live to 100 keep eating it? Not because they're rare. Not because they're expensive. But because they're bitter. Foods like bitter melon, fermented soy, and sour vegetables show up again and again in the diets of people who live the longest. And scientists studying longevity are starting to uncover why. Today we're exploring the surprising connection between bitter foods, gut health, and blood sugar control, and what major research institutions have discovered about them. 1. The Blue Zone Discovery. The idea of blue zones comes from research led by longevity scientist Dan Buettner, working with National Geographic and the National Institute on Aging, where researchers studied regions with unusually high numbers of people living past 90 and even 100. These regions include Okinawa, Japan; Sardinia, Italy; Icaria, Greece; Nicoya, Costa Rica; Loma Linda, California. Despite different cultures and cuisines, researchers noticed something fascinating. Their diets are overwhelmingly plant-based, rich in beans, vegetables, herbs, and fermented foods. And according to nutrition research from the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, diets high in plant compounds, especially polyphenols and fiber, are strongly associated with reduced risk of heart disease, diabetes, and premature death. But when scientists looked closer at traditional foods in these regions, they noticed a pattern. A lot of them are bitter or fermented. 2. The bitter food pattern. In modern diets, bitterness is something we usually avoid. Food companies even breed vegetables to taste sweeter because people prefer it. But historically, bitter plants were a major part of the human diet. Wild greens, herbs, medicinal vegetables. And in blue zones, they still are. One of the most famous examples comes from Okinawa, Japan. A vegetable called bitter melon, locally known as Goya. 3. Bitter melon and blood sugar research. Bitter melon has been used in traditional Asian medicine for centuries, but modern science is now studying it seriously. Researchers from institutions including the National Institutes of Health, NIH, and studies published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology have investigated bitter melon for its potential blood sugar lowering effects. Some studies show compounds in bitter melon may act similarly to insulin by helping cells absorb glucose more effectively. And metabolic research from the American Diabetes Association has highlighted bitter melon as a promising plant food that may help support blood sugar regulation, although scientists say more large human studies are still needed. Why does that matter for longevity? Because chronically high blood sugar is strongly linked to aging-related diseases like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and inflammation. Foods that help stabilize blood sugar may help protect long-term metabolic health. And that's exactly the kind of food pattern researchers see in blue zone diets. 4. The sour side of longevity, fermented foods. Now let's talk about the other flavor pattern scientists noticed. Sour. Across blue zones, fermented foods are everywhere. Examples include miso and natto in Okinawa, yogurt and fermented milk in Sardinia and Icaria, pickled vegetables across Mediterranean regions. Fermentation introduces beneficial microbes called probiotics. And according to research from Stanford University's School of Medicine, diets rich in fermented foods can significantly increase gut microbiome diversity and reduce inflammatory markers in the body. That's a big deal. Because scientists now believe the gut microbiome plays a major role in immune function, metabolism, and even aging. In fact, research from the National Institute on Aging suggests that maintaining a diverse gut microbiome is associated with healthier aging and lower levels of chronic inflammation. So those fermented foods common in blue zones may be doing something powerful behind the scenes. They're feeding the good bacteria in the gut. 5. Why bitter plants are biologically powerful. Here's something fascinating. Many bitter plants taste that way because they contain bioactive compounds. Things like polyphenols, flavonoids, antioxidants. According to research published by scientists at Johns Hopkins University, these plant compounds help neutralize oxidative stress and reduce inflammation, two major processes linked to aging and chronic disease. In other words, the same chemicals that create the bitter taste may also be the compounds protecting the body. Bitterness might actually be nature's way of signaling powerful plant chemistry. 6. The blood sugar stability pattern. When researchers analyze blue zone diets overall, they see a consistent metabolic pattern. According to nutritional studies reviewed by Harvard Medical School and the World Health Organization, traditional diets in these regions tend to include high-fiber plant foods, low-refined sugar, fermented foods, polyphenol-rich vegetables. Together, these foods help prevent rapid blood sugar spikes. And stable blood sugar is one of the most important factors in preventing metabolic diseases associated with aging. So bitterness isn't just a random flavor preference. It may be part of a larger dietary pattern that supports long-term metabolic health. 7. Why modern diets lost this flavor. Here's the ironic part. Over the last century, modern agriculture has intentionally bred many vegetables to be less bitter and more sweet, because consumers prefer sweet flavors. But some researchers believe that in removing bitterness, we may have also reduced exposure to some of the protective plant compounds that traditional diets once contained. So the flavors we learned to avoid may actually be the ones our bodies evolved with. Conclusion: the hidden longevity signal. So what can we learn from the world's longest living communities? The people who regularly reach 90 or even 100 aren't relying on miracle supplements or trendy superfoods. Instead, their diets include simple traditional ingredients, many of which share two powerful flavor profiles, bitter and fermented. Foods like bitter melon, wild greens, fermented soy foods like miso and natto, yogurt and pickled vegetables. Together, these foods may support blood sugar balance, gut health, and anti-inflammatory pathways, all key factors in healthy aging according to modern research. So next time you taste something bitter, you might be tasting one of the oldest longevity clues in human nutrition. And maybe that bitterness is actually your body's signal that something powerful is inside. If you found this fascinating, make sure to subscribe for more science-backed insights into longevity and nutrition. And I'm curious, would you eat bitter melon for the potential health benefits, even if it tastes awful? Let me know in the comments.